still working to understand functions. We've changed some I will statements to I can. So last week, I can write a polynomial in proper form. And remember, proper form is highest exponent to lowest exponent. I can identify the degree of the polynomial. Once you write it in proper form, from highest exponent to lowest exponent, that's highest exponent is the degree of the polynomial. And I can identify the leading coefficient of the polynomial. Again, once you have it in proper form, the leading coefficient is the coefficient or the number in front of your highest exponent, or your variable with the highest exponent. So we have changed some I will statements to I can statements. Now, we are still identifying polynomials. I will identify odd and even functions. I will describe the end behavior of functions. These two things are going to be what we will be focusing on today, and then I will evaluate functions. Okay, what is a polynomial? A polynomial is defined as an expression which is composed of variables, constants, and exponents that are combined using mathematical operations such as addition, subtraction, and multiplication and division. However, no division operation by a variable. So anytime you see a variable in the denominator, most likely it is not a polynomial. So this means a polynomial, the variable cannot be in the denominator. So now, okay, how do you identify an odd or even function from a graph? It's really simple. You look at the graph. Okay, if the ends of that graph are going in the same direction, they're both going up or they're both going down. Regardless, I don't care what goes on the middle. The ends of the graph, if they both go up or they both go down, visually, then it's an even function. With an odd function, you're looking at the graph. If those ends go in separate directions, on the left is going up, on the right is going down, on the right is going up, the left is going down, regardless. The ends are opposite direction. It's an odd function, and I've got several graphs that we are going to look at. Okay. Now, let's see. What does it say? Oh, how do you identify if the function is a positive or if the leading coefficient is positive or negative? That's really simple. Especially what's an even function. An even function, both of them up is positive. The leading coefficient is positive. An even function, both ends are down is negative. Then the leading coefficient is negative. Now let's look at an odd function. On the odd function, on the left side, let's scroll this up just a little bit. The left side, if the left side is going up, but the right side is going down, regardless of what happens in the middle, this is an odd function with the leading coefficient that's negative. If you have an end that's up on the right and then an end that's down on the left, regardless of what goes on the middle, this is an odd function with a leading coefficient that is positive. And like I said, I have several graphs that we're going to look at these. Okay? Now, we all know that's a parabola. A parabola is a quadratic. A quadratic, both ends go up. We have an x squared. Now, our parent function, and I use this on purpose, f of x equals x squared. Well, the leading coefficient is 1. It is a positive 1 because that is a positive 1 understood. Both ends are up, so we know that this is an even function. Both ends are going up. Now, because they're going in the same direction, this is also an even function because both ends are going down regardless. Okay. Now, this one has a leading coefficient of 1, positive 1. So this has a positive leading coefficient. Both of these ends on the second graph, both of them are going down, and we know that's a reflection. My a value would have to be negative when we have our f of x equals a times x minus h squared plus k. My a value would have to be negative, giving it a leading coefficient that is negative. Now, keep in mind, we are not identifying what that coefficient is. We are just saying, okay, this is an odd or even function, and the leading coefficient is either positive or negative. Both ends up, positive direction, okay? So this is even, leading coefficient positive. This one's down, okay? Both ends down, both ends are same direction, so it's an even function. Down, negative, leading coefficient, that is negative, okay? Now, the next two that I picked, maybe, there we go, is our cubic function. We know what this looks like. This is our cubic function. And again, our parent function, and we've done this, okay? Our parent function is f of x equals x cubed. Again, in this particular instance, this is a 1, and I did make this a parent function. This one here is a 1. But notice though, okay, cubic, we know just by looking at it, it's a cubic. 3 is odd, okay? But notice that the ends are going in separate directions. So this is an odd function because they're going in separate directions. Now we need to look. My left hand side is down, my right hand side is up. So this is an odd function with a positive leading coefficient. This has a positive leading coefficient. I-C-I-N-T. This one here, again, my ends are going in separate directions, so regardless if I know it's cubic isn't relevant. This is an odd function. My ends are going in separate directions. Now, because the left-hand side is going up and the right-hand side is going down, this is a negative leading coefficient, okay? And now we are familiar with these, the 4 graphs that we talked about. So, and I've got 2 more that we're familiar with, and they're kind of easy as well, okay? Now, the next 2 we have are linear, okay? Now again, we're just trying to determine if these are odd or even functions. We don't even have to classify them as quadratic or absolute value or cubic or cubed root or square root or anything like that. We are simply looking at graphs and identifying, is this an odd function? Is this an even function? Does it have a positive leading coefficient or negative leading coefficient? Okay, this is linear, okay? We know this has a positive slope. Linear has an exponent of 1, okay? Even though if we don't know that, look at the ends. One end's going up, one end's going out, and the ends are going in separate directions. So this is an odd function. Now, because they're going in separate directions, because the left is going down and the right is going up, then we have a positive leading coefficient. And we can also stop and think, this is a linear graph with a positive slope. This is a linear graph with a negative slope. Again, the ends are going in opposite direction. So this is an odd function because it's going in the opposite direction. And if we don't recognize this has a negative slope, we can recognize the left is going up, the right is going down. So I have a negative leading coefficient. So not too terribly bad, okay? So we've done 6 graphs that we're familiar with, okay? We've done the quadratic, both ends go up, positive, or an even function with a positive leading coefficient. Both ends go down. That is an even function with a negative leading coefficient. The cube, okay, the cubic, this, okay, ends are going separate, odd function, okay, but the right end's going up, the left end's going down with the leading coefficient that's positive. Then we have the cubic function here. Again, you don't have to say it's cubic, it's an odd function. The left is going up, the right is going down, so that has a negative leading coefficient. And then we're back to our linear, okay, if you don't, we should recognize it's a line. But one side's going up, one side's going down, opposite directions, odd function, but the right is up, the left is down, so we have a leading coefficient that's positive. Ends are opposite directions here, the right is up, the left is up, the right is down, so we have a negative leading coefficient. So the next 2 that we get are two just graphs that we are given and that we need to look at. Oh, wow. Okay. So I have these two. All right. Well, look at this. Ends are separate. My ends are going in separate directions. So automatically, let's write up here, I have an odd function. The ends are going in separate directions. The next thing, okay, my left is down, my right is up. So left is going where it's supposed to. Left is negative, right is positive. So I have, and let's write it in red, I have a positive leading coefficient. So this is a graph we have not seen before, but we are able to identify that it is an odd function, that it does have a positive leading coefficient. That's all we're asked to do right now, okay? This next one, look over here. Oh, wow. Let's see. Both ends are in the same direction. So if they're in the same direction, automatically I have an even function because they are in the same direction. Now, because they're in the same direction and they're going up, I have a positive leading coefficient. So those aren't too terribly bad, okay? We just have to look at the end behavior of our functions. Later, we're going to talk about how we describe the end behavior, okay? We'll talk about that. Okay, today we're going to keep it quick, simple, and easy. Let's see, do I have any more? Nope, that's it. Okay, real quick, let's just, I'm going to quickly sketch something. I'll do it in green that that will be an even function with a negative leading coefficient. Okay, this end would be going down. Let's say this comes up, 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 and then I go down again. Notice, they're both going down. They're in the down direction. So this would be an even function with a negative leading coefficient. I'm going to do the same thing over here. We'll do an odd function with a negative leading coefficient. Well, a negative leading coefficient, the left-hand side would be going up, regardless of what happens in the middle, and the right hand goes down. Opposite directions, the left hand's up, the right hand's down. This would be an odd because they're opposite directions. Because the left is up, the right is down. This would have a negative leading coefficient. So, I just want to be sure that you have these identification factors in your journals. Be sure that you, whoops, let's see, there we go. Be sure that you have this copy, maybe highlighted or starred, so that when you go back to review, you don't have to go back and find this video. Also be sure that you have these things in your journals. Again, star them, graph them. Be sure that you have them so that you don't have to come back and make reference to the video. And you can if you want to, that's not a big deal. Again, these are our can statements from last week. We can do that. This week, we're going to focus more on identifying a polynomial, which we'll hit later this week. We will evaluate functions tomorrow. We will identify odd and even and describe the end behaviors. Today we're just identifying odd and even and if the leading coefficient is positive or negative. Tomorrow, we are going to describe the end behavior of functions. And we will also begin evaluating functions. Identifying a polynomial, it's going to be a polynomial if it's any combination of constants and variables, as long as that variable is not in the denominator. So, thank you very much.